Hi, my name's Jim Huggett of JF Huggett Custom Furniture. I'm here with Joshua Farnsworth of Wooden Shop. He's asked me to give you a little tour of my shop and talk a little bit about my woodworking practice. So we're going to do that. Shouldn't take us too long. I got started in woodworking out of necessity about 45 years ago when I was in the Navy and pretty poor, didn't have enough furniture to fill the little house we had. So I'd go over to the wood shop on base, and the old guys there, the old chiefs, would show me how to do the basic things I needed to do, and I got started, and I really loved it. So I've spent the last 45 years working in garages and basements and tight spaces and trying to keep the dust out of the house, and I finally had an opportunity here to build a shop, my dream shop, in the woods out behind my house. And that's what I'd like to show you today. So Joshua asked me to talk to you a little bit about the kind of work I do. It is custom furniture. It's a lot of traditional designs, New England style furniture that back in the day was so large that a lot of people don't have enough room for it anymore. So quite a bit of my work is to modify the size of very traditional designs. But since I'm a custom furniture builder, I go wherever the client needs me to go. So there's a lot of different types of furniture and different styles that I work with. I guess my first love is American antique styles from the Newport and Philadelphia and Boston families. But since I do custom work, I pretty much have to do what I'm asked to do. I built this shop about 5 years ago in preparation for retiring from a business career, and have been working in here ever since. Wondered when I built the shop whether I would find it boring doing it every day, but it has not happened. I love it out here. I'm out here 7 days a week. So let's go inside and take a look. Okay, well, welcome to the shop. I kind of explained the process of design before we came in, but essentially I've been designing this for 40 years while working in basements and garages like most people do. Finally got a piece of property that was large enough to handle an outbuilding, and pulled out all the designs that I'd saved and stored and seen in magazines, and bought a bunch of books and came up with this design in particular. There are some things that make it a little different. I tend to prefer a lot of light, and as you can see, there's a heavy emphasis on windows. You pay a price for windows because you don't have the storage space that you would have if those were walls. But on the other hand, the light in here is great. On a summer day, I can work in here without turning the lights on. There are also 3 skylights. They are on the east side, on the wood side especially, so that you don't get a lot of direct sunlight through them, but a lot of diffused light. So that's very helpful. Other thing that I wanted to incorporate was, got tired of trying to work under ceilings that were too low. And if you've got a 3-foot bench and an 8-foot ceiling, you know how difficult it is to work with a large piece on the bench. So I used this design rather than try to use an attic or put an attic in. I raised the roof to a cathedral style ceiling, which gives me all the room I could ever use on the bench. So the floor is plywood over 2x4s, so that it has a nice spring to it. It's comfortable on your feet and pretty easy to keep clean. So that was something I saw in a fine woodworking magazine. Got the design from that. I'll take you around the room. Because I lost so much storage space on the walls, the first thing I did was build a bench along the window wall here with storage underneath for hand tools. And this compensates for the fact that I don't have a lot of places to hang things like chisels and other hand tools. The bench is just 2 layers of 3/4 inch laminated plywood over a frame, and then built on a series of drawers. And in the drawers I store most of my tools. as you can see. Those little packets, by the way, come out of everything we get, those little moisture wicking packets. So my wife just throws them in a bowl and I bring them out here and throw them in the drawers with my power tools or with my hand tools to keep them from rusting. Seems to work. I don't know, it may not. So the windows that I mentioned. Lighting is pretty straightforward. There are fluorescent lights and bench lights. The bench lights are LED and the fluorescent lights as well. So, and it is a dark day today. It's pretty cloudy and rainy, but in a normal day, you don't need a lot of extra light in here. So, heating and cooling, just like a hotel room, heating and cooling hotel style single unit. It's electric, and it does keep the place cool. You got to start a little ahead of time because of the high ceilings when it's time to heat it, but it does a nice job of cooling it. This unit here for the hand tools, I saw in a magazine, and one of the tool magazines, and so I went ahead and built it. Pretty handy, gets everything up there on the bench, and you get your power tools where you want them. This part of the bench is where I do most of my hand carving, and which I do quite a bit in my work. And cut dovetails here if the boards aren't too big. And I built this little cabinet here as a place to keep the tools handy so that I could reach them while I was working on them without just laying them all over the bench. It actually turns out to be more handy just to have a tray to throw things in to find than I actually is the magnetic arm holding things up, but it works pretty well. So this is the carving position here, and I use that position down at the end as my sharpening station. See where the water is and the sharpening unit. So works quite well. This bench actually lives in that cubby under there and slides right in there, but it gives me the ability to kind of move it around the shop, and I put a plug bar in there so that as I move it to one place, I have just one extension cord coming over to it, and then I can plug multiple tools into it and roll it around to wherever I'm working within the shop. This is my primary bench. Been around a long time. I don't remember where I got it or anything about it, except I've had it probably for 35, 40 years. Most of my clamps are on the back. There are some other places around with other clamps, but obviously I don't have nearly enough clamps, but nobody ever does. The vacuum system is something else that I spent some time thinking about. The vacuum itself is on the other side of that wall. It's a jet system, and I operate this using a remote control, so I can just clip this on my shirt and use the vacuum, which then hooks into the table saw and the other power tools around the room. I thought about running overhead ducts to each of the power tools, which would certainly be handier, but I just didn't want to clutter up the shop with a lot of pipes running across the ceiling. So I'm willing to pull that out and stick it into the machines as I use them. Yeah, let me show you the vacuum system. There's no magic to it, but putting in a closet on the other side of this wall made life a little easier. This is just a storage shed for garden tools and things like that, added on to the end. But this is the vacuum system itself. And I had it put in this closet and had the door added so that it's easy to empty. I just open the door and pull the bag out and dump it on the pile outside. Okay. Back into the shop. And one of the other things that I did, you'll see in the external pictures of the building that there's actually a cupola on the building, and it's a working cupola. The idea here was to be able to clear dust and smoke fairly quickly. It's a very powerful ceiling type barn fan that lives up in that cupola, and I have to open a door because it's so powerful it won't run without having a door open. But when it's smoky in here, or when I want to change the temperature, say it's cooler outside than it is in here, all I have to do is turn it on. And it clears the air in a minute. If it's dusty or smoky in here, or wrong temperature, it just takes 60 seconds to empty it all out. And sometimes I run it, but most of the time it's kind of loud, so I don't leave it running all the time. But it really does a good job. As the photographer will tell you now, that we just changed the temperature in here about 10 degrees by running that. So chop saw and more clamp storage in this corner, and my bandsaw is here. Bandsaw probably should be on wheels just to get it out sometimes. I just muscle it out, but it's in a good location, and having it angled back there means there's not often a lot of work. I do most of my own design. My work is mostly custom furniture, mostly traditional early American style, Newport style furniture. So I do most of my own design through using SketchUp on this computer. So it turns out the computer is probably one of my most important tools, because I can differentiate my work by designing to a customer's needs or specifications, either taking a standard design and making it appropriate for the space they have, or designing from scratch. So computer turns out to be very important. This table here was built back in the days when I used to do all my work with a T-square, but since I got a computer now and hardly ever use a T-square, I don't really need a draftsman bench anymore. So this is the library, which I've been collecting over a lot of years. Very dusty. The wood storage is, this cart came out of a popular woodworking video, but it turned out to be extremely handy for plywood, and then the back for the small cuts off the plywood. This is the kind of stuff that drives a shop crazy, because you don't know what to do with this and you don't really want to throw it away. Standard wood racks for the rest of the wood, and the cart gives me a place to put plywood, and also I don't do it very often, but if I had to bring in 3/4 inch plywood from the car, for example, I can empty this, roll it out, and load it onto this, and then use it as a way to get it back into the house. So double doors, which are letting in the mosquitoes, just to make sure we had enough room to get the boat out of the basement. So that's the shop. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching Wooden Shop. And in a few minutes, I'll take you through a nice, simple process for doing hand-cut dovetails.
This is Joshua Farnsworth. If you're interested in learning traditional woodworking with hand tools, visit my website at woodandshop.com, where you can find free video tutorials, workshop tours of amazing traditional woodworkers, and tool buying guides. You can ask questions and share your projects with thousands of woodworkers on my free traditional woodworking forum. Make sure you subscribe to my regular blog posts, and also check out my 10 steps for getting started in traditional woodworking. Enjoy!